W.I. Black here. I have a poem and short story for you tonight. Both are entitled Gravedigger. I hope you enjoy. He sung solemn songs amongst the bones in the inky key of black crows, born of a witch's brew, cast and milled with inky night beneath a sky not so blue. Dust hangs upon the cobbled stone that leads to graveyard home, a place where sun has never shone, but life would surely moan if chance would bestir. It was a small cemetery where I grew up that was known to house the families of the early settlers of the region. It was quite unassuming considering the age and affluence of some of the families entered there, for there were no mausoleums or gaudy plots with intricate masonry. Almost all the graves had a meager stone with a name and date, with some having no form of identification except for a crude arrangement of rocks for the demarcation. This wasn't the only cemetery in town, but it was the oldest and had historic value, so naturally it wasn't used anymore, except on rare occasions since there weren't many plots left and they were only reserved for those of local ancestral birth. As mentioned before, the adornments of this graveyard were modest except for a group of angelic statues facing the four great directions. Many of their features have become worn from the elements, reducing their former beauty. Faces were pitted, armaments broken, and wings chipped. In addition to this, a hefty dose of overgrown vegetation gave the statues a sense of somber antiquity. Despite their appearance, it was these statues which began to draw attention of the locals and travelers alike. It was believed to be the act of some prankster, but on one Halloween the statues were found coated in a red substance that was later confirmed to be blood. One can imagine the attention this would garner. At the time I was a mere boy, so I didn't grasp the magnitude of what it implied. Now I said it was blood, but to put a finer point on it, the blood was verified to be of human origin. Now people were really freaking out. Hospitals, morgues, and local homeless circles were all questioned about any strange incidents or disappearances in the area. There had been no recent murders, and any for as long as the people could remember, so no one was expected of foul play, but this didn't seem to ease the tension felt by the community. Time went on, and eventually it became an unfavorable memory, like the ones everyone remembers but no one talks about. Life went on until the following year when it happened again. This time, there were more extensive news coverage. Tourists were coming into the town to see the bleeding angels. Local hotels were gouging rates. It was a regular brouhaha, for lack of a better word. The prospect of making money somehow superseded the fear that some sick freak was out there desecrating a graveyard with human fluids. You gotta give the devil his due on this one. He knows how to spark the human spirit in times of adversity. Once again, no one knew who was responsible. By this time, I had grown a little wiser and reckoned enough that the son of a bitch responsible was someone to be feared. Despite the townies' reluctance to speak on the use the previous year, the second occurrence brought about a whole new outlook, material to frighten your kids with. Once again, the devil, folks. Parents and bullies alike now were coming up with variations of the story with new, albeit dubious, details that went undetected by me and pretty much most of the kids in town. It goes without saying, but I will anyway. Most of us needed therapy at some point after that. As the following Halloween approached, everyone awaited with greedy anticipation the coming reddening, as it was endearingly referred to. They weren't disappointed. More blood, more money, more stories, and more fear. While many praised the vandal for the economic boon, others, and quite frankly, in all sense of the word, prudent people found this situation having run its course, once being more than enough, and set out to do something about this. Thus was born the GAP, aka the Grave Attendees Posse. Since nothing happened in the interim between incidents, it was established that they would meet the following Halloween and stake out the graveyard. Now, this next bit of the story gets a little hazy. The actual details are up for debate as to what really happened, but the consensus is that no one really knows. Halloween night. Everyone is planning in an inconspicuous place. No wind or movement. Everyone is holding their breath, some praying that it just won't happen because people and their superstitions, while the others are looking forward to putting a boot in someone's face. As the hours roll on, they see a figure approaching with the apparatus meant for spraying chemicals, something like an exterminator would use. Well, this normally wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't on the night, because the man turned out to be the local gravedigger. Not wanting to act rash, everyone maintained their positions. The gravedigger made his way to the statues and set down the canister. There's a dispute as to what he was doing next, but some say he starts to either mumble or chant something. He raised his arms up in the air and fell to his knees. Everyone knew this had to be the guy, but they wanted to see him in the act of desecration. After a few minutes, he got back to his feet. Taking the canister plunger, he began pumping his pressure. Finally, he took aim and coated the statues in a red substance that left no doubt to the crowd watching its origin. At that moment, everyone ran forth, knocked the man down, and bound him. Those there assumed he was caught off guard because he didn't react when they flew upon him, but a couple of them maintained that they thought he knew they were there the whole time and wanted to get caught. The GAP took him to the police station where a number of questions were asked. Where did you get the blood? The people. Whose blood is it? The locals. Why did you do it? The shadow made me. When questioned further about the blood coming from locals, people couldn't believe it when he gave a list of names, which happened to be those who had been buried over the past few years in the graveyards around town. The digger said he took it from them before he prepared the corpse for burial. When questioned further about the motive, he just responded with the same, "The shadow made me do it." After some more time questioning the digger, he told them that there was a subterranean chamber beneath the charnel house where he kept the blood. A group of officers and a medical examiner took a trip over to the charnel house. Locating the hypogean chamber revealed a reliquary of disturbing artifacts. In addition to the blood harvested were a number of organs and jars too. Upon further study of the room, found nothing else of interest except for a video camera on a tripod with a tape inserted, which also was confiscated. The organs and blood were catalogued and disposed of in a proper fashion, but the tape and the recorder posed a particular problem which to this day has not been resolved, and many fear it never will. Upon playing the tape, they discovered the gravedigger sitting at a table in the darkened chamber he told them about. He appeared to be sobbing. On the table before him were jars filled with organs and blood similar to the ones confiscated from the charnel house. The scene goes on the same for a few minutes until another figure appears behind the gravedigger. The face of the individual is obscured by the darkness. The figure extends a hand, touching the digger, who begins to shake uncontrollably. The hand retracts, the convulsions stop, and the digger begins to reach into the jars and tear at the contents with his teeth. The flesh drips and oozes as mouthful after mouthful he consumes. During his frenzy, the sobbing can be heard to start back up. Finally, when all the flesh is consumed, he gazes at the camera with a blood-stained face and lets out a weak whisper, "Help me." Then the tape cuts off. When questioned further about the individual in the video, he only responds with, "The shadow," and then bursts into tears while starting to convulse. Given his state, they had to put him on suicide watch while they tried to make sense of what was going on. Not long after that, and much to the surprise of everyone there, he was found dead, covered in his own blood, but no wound on his body. With no other clues and their own lead dead, the case had a dead end and went cold. Once again, a memory was born that no one wanted to talk about. This time, it stayed that way. The graveyard was closed indefinitely to visitors, and no one was ever allowed to be buried there again. People still sometimes say that they see something on the statues if they drive by on Halloween, but the next day they look the same as they always did. A local musician wrote a song about the graveyard. It was never very popular, but one of the lines did resonate with me. How the battered angels stand and wait for the devil to come. Will they fight or will they run? Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thank you again. Until next time.